Hi, this is Will Elder, and for my cultural interview assignment, I decided to explore the interpersonal relationships between the Czech people as well as their business culture here in the Czech Republic. So I decided to interview three of my fellow coworkers, two males and one female, to get different perspectives on how they would view Czech culture themselves. The first thing that we discussed were the greetings that they use here in the Czech Republic. So, Dobrý den is a typical greeting that is very formal here. You would use that to someone that you have not met before. Whereas, specifically in my workplace, when a coworker walks in the room, they typically greet someone with ciao or ahoy. These are more friendly and casual interactions between the people. You would never use ciao or ahoy for someone that you do not know or someone that you have not met yet. And so the next thing that I asked them about was the typical cuisine that they have here in the Czech Republic. And what I have noticed and what they told me is that their food is very heavy, often coated in a gravy-like substance. It's also very common for your dishes to contain beef, pork, and potato dumplings. Those are three of the most popular foods here. And also, one thing that I've noticed, which is really interesting, that lunch is the most important meal here in the Czech Republic, whereas to America, it's often said that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But here, typically, lunch is a large meal in the middle of the day, and then they often eat a smaller sized dinner later at night. And on the first night that we were here in Prague, the USA program took us out to eat some typical Czech cuisine, and these are some photos that I took. On the left, you can see what is pork and duck and beef all mixed on a plate, and on the right is just a typical appetizer containing meats and vegetables. So then I asked about what they view their culture to be and how they think that Czech culture is viewed in society. And what they told me is that more often than not, Czechs are very mild mannered and they like to keep to themselves. For instance, on public transportations on the metro, it's very standard that people keep quiet and do not make much noise, and you should never make eye contact with a stranger. Also, one of the lasting impressions that is still somewhat prevalent today is the Soviet Union influence that is here. So, one of the interesting stories that I actually heard here was during the 60s and 70s, while the Beatles were very popular in America and all over the world, the Soviet Union tried to bar its citizens from listening to this pop culture because they viewed it as a way of rebellion, and they thought that they would lose control of their people if they allowed pop culture into the world. So the Czech citizens would actually smuggle popular music, such as the Beatles, into the city, and they would listen to it. And after John Lennon's death, one night, a person went and sculpted a mural of John Lennon on a wall, and today it's known as the Lennon Wall. And even though the Czech people did not get free from communism until 1989, you could see a little bit of backlash against the government because they all felt that they were not happy with the communist government and they wanted to be their own power. And the Lenin Wall really symbolizes that they wanted to be their own people. So then we began talking about the business culture that they have here in the Czech Republic. And one thing that they noticed is that they are much more laid back than Americans. And one of my coworkers gave an interesting tidbit saying that in America, people often are defined by their jobs, meaning that when you ask someone who they are, what they are, they say, "Oh, I'm an accountant. Oh, I'm a lawyer." Here in the Czech Republic, people don't really define themselves by their jobs. Nobody really asks what you do for a living. They're more interested in who they are as a person, and I guess they see reflected into American culture that we are almost workaholics and take our jobs much more seriously than they do here. And another thing that's reflected during their work hours that lunch breaks are often the social time where coworkers will talk to each other and especially in my office, it's the time where everybody in the office goes out together and they'll talk about their day, talk about their life, talk about their family. And then usually during work, they're all very attentive and focused. But lunch breaks are a big part of the day for them here. As I said, lunch is one of the more important meals of the day. And then another thing that was noted about their culture is punctuality is very important. It's often very rude or considered very rude if you make someone wait for a meeting or for lunch or dinner. So then we started talking about what they do after work, and the one thing that kept popping up was going out and grabbing a beer. Here in the Czech Republic, they're very proud of their beer. They have two large breweries here, Pilsner Urquell and Staropramen. You see them all around here in Prague. And it's just typical for after work to meet up with a friend, meet up with colleagues, and just go out and grab a beer, which is something that you also see in America sometimes, but it seems that everybody here, it's just part of their culture to get a beer every day because it's so cheap, it's just readily available, and they're so proud of their beer. So I ended the interview by asking my coworkers about what they thought of American culture, and the three responses that came up were loud, fast food, and Trump. And I thought these were three very interesting tidpoints on American culture. Obviously, I think can attest that we are very loud. I've definitely noticed that in my month here that often when we go out to a restaurant, we're the loudest ones there by a lot. Fast food, there's not much fast food here in at least in my part of Prague. There seems to be a lot of local shops, not too many McDonald's or Burger Kings around the street, and Donald Trump. They're very political here in Prague, so obviously they keep up with American politics as well. Just it seems to be a very big talking point between everybody here. So I'm going to conclude my interview conclusions with some photos I've taken of Prague. I just think they represent what the city looks like, and I feel like you can get a better image of how life looks just based on the pictures. On the left is a famous artwork, a famous architect. It's a man in an umbrella hanging from a wire. There's a lot of public art like this, and on the right is a view of the Charles River, of the Charles Bridge, excuse me. It's the main tourist attraction here in Prague. And, yeah.